Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Sheldon-Feld with the International Grief Institute, and this is Moments of Hope. Tonight, we have a remarkable guest that I'm super excited to share with you. Her name is Lo-Ann Mayer. She is a Reiki master, a student of Edgar Cayce, and a certified teacher of Louise Hay, Healing Your Life. And she has a remarkable story about journaling and having celestial conversations with loved ones on the other side. So welcome to the show, Lo-Ann.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Linda.
I'm happy to have you. This is really, really cool stuff, and I'm very excited. And for the viewers, Lo-Ann and I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of a couple of weeks ago down in Florida when we were both serving some families down there who had lost children in a school shooting. And so it was really wonderful to get that hug in face to face and meet each other. I know that we're going to be doing some work together with some classes and curriculum beginning this summer, and we'll tell our viewers more about that. But for now, I want to go back to when you lost your mom, and that was in 2004. Your mom passed, and you stumbled upon this practice of journaling and writing to your mom, and amazingly enough, your mom wrote back.
Yes, that's right.
What happened?
Well, the reason I wrote, I think, is important. I don't know if there are many people like me, but we had a lot of unfinished business, my mother and I. My mom was very Irish. She was very quiet and did not share very well her whole life long. And there was a lot of things that we never finished in our conversations, even though I had been heavily involved in healing for many years. I never quite had that moment with my mother, except for the fact that I was with her when she died, and I'm sure there are other people in your audience who have that experience. It was absolutely breathtaking to watch my mother go from a very, very comatose type person to sitting up at about 45 degrees and seeing something I did not see, but seeing something in the upper right-hand corner of the room. And in that moment, she went, oh, 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 and the smile was just unbelievable.
Oh my God.
She laid down and died right there in front of me.
And so you have no idea what she saw right before she passed.
I have a feeling now, but at the time I was like, oh my goodness, what just happened there? The funny thing is, Linda, I am hospice trained, so I knew all the possibilities. I knew it from other people and other workshops I had been in with hospice. But as a result of her passing, I never got to finish my questions, the things that I wanted to know. And it bothered me a lot that I couldn't have that conversation with my mother about what happened, not only then, but in the past, what made it so difficult for her to share with me things that I needed to know. Okay. So one of my hospice volunteer friends said to me, why don't you start to journal and get it out of your head and put it on paper? And I thought it was a great idea, except for the fact that I wanted to talk to my mother. And so I developed this process where I said a prayer because I really, really wanted to reach her. And I did some meditation. I've been a meditator for 35 years. And then I wrote pen to paper, Dear Mom, and I wrote my whole story. You know, I really need to know more about what was going on between us, why it was so difficult, and most importantly, help me let go of what I was holding on to. I had a lot of resentment, a lot of criticism about that relationship because I was so successful everywhere but with my mother.
Oh my goodness.
So my writing to her was really an effort to clear my reaction to what our relationship had been when she was alive. And from my days of teaching Louise Hay work, I knew that stuff was still in me and was keeping me from being all I wanted to be. So I wrote.
Answer back, right?
I'm sorry?
You never expected her to answer.
No, I think I just kind of wanted I wanted attention, and I thought maybe there was a chance I might get some insights or some inspirations, that kind of thing. But a couple of days later, I should mention I had 6 children and a very busy life at that time. I had a grandson in the hospital, and I had a lot of things playing out in my life. But this bothered me so much that every time I thought of my mother, I was kind of angry, I guess is a good word. So a couple of days later, I started with the process again. The phone had interrupted me before. I took the phone off the hook. I said my prayer. I did my meditation. And I intended to write a few more caveats of things I wanted to know. Instead, I wrote, Dear Loanne. And I wrote it exactly the way my mother wrote my name. And
Wow.
it was like, oh my goodness, and she always wrote Loanne, and most of my life I've written LOANNE. I always love the script, that stuff. So it went on to say, basically, thank goodness we found a way to connect, and I will happily take care of any questions that you'd like to ask me.
Wow.
And then typical of my mother, she said, I've been trying to get through to you for some time. Let's.
I think all mothers say that.
Yeah. But anyway, we started this like writing back and forth every day for maybe 5 months. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't really know what it was at the time. And I knew I was beginning to get information that helped me release my feelings. I did not know at that time either that I was going to be faced with the death of our daughter the following year, and that I would need this time frame of learning how to ask and receive information in a way that I could trust. And so for 5 months, I did it.
Okay, so before we talk about your next tragedy, your next loss, did you share with anyone that you were doing this with your mom?
I was terrified to share anything with anybody. I'm Roman Catholic. I was sure I'd be kicked out of the church for doing automatic writing. But it wasn't. I knew what automatic writing was. And all I knew is that as I got the answers to my questions, that I could feel this release of my feelings about my mother. And it began to be so warm and so cozy, all the things I wanted when she was alive, that I didn't tell anybody until maybe 3 months after I did it. I talked to my husband about it. I talked to the children about it. But I really didn't share with anybody else because I just felt like it was almost a holy moment. Okay. And I didn't know how to describe it to anyone adequately.
So when you did share it, what was their reaction?
Well, my children, I've been in the healing world for many, many years, 40 years or so. So they know I'm just a little bit wacky. And so they were not surprised. But they also said, they were asking questions like when I showed my journal to the children, and I said, if you want to look at it, feel free. My one son said to me there was a difference in the writing when I wrote to my mother as to when I wrote from her.
Okay.
I honestly couldn't see what he was saying. All I knew was that I was starting to let go of all these negative thoughts I had, and it really felt wonderful.
And you had some answer to questions that were really imperative to you.
Well, they were imperative to me. For instance, my mother was very suspicious and very difficult towards the end of her life. And she shared with me that she was on 28 medications. I didn't know that. Okay. I was not living with her. So anybody's going to be a little wacky if they're on 28 medications, So that just kind of helped me let go of my analysis of it was all about me. It was some things that were going on with her. And she wanted as much as I did to continue the conversation because she had wisdom to share. And she did. And she did.
Okay, so moving forward, a year later, you lost your daughter Cindy to suicide.
Exactly.
After you lost your mom and you started journaling and stumbled across this process of a two-way communication with your mom, and then you had a gap of time where you weren't doing it, life, you were busy, and then you lost Cindy to suicide. At what point did you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to try that again with Cindy to see if I get the same results? What happened there?
Well, actually, it was when she died, I was in England, and I came back as quickly as possible thinking I would find out what happened. Cindy had an autistic young boy at that point in time. This is like 22 years ago. And there was still lots to learn about autism, and it really took its toll on my daughter. But basically, I couldn't get the information of what happened to her because Cindy's husband chose not to share that with us. So I wrote to my mother, and I said, I need to know if the classic question that we all share, who lost a child. Is she all right? Where is she? What's going on? What happened? And so it was my mother that began to tell me what happened to my daughter. And in the middle of that, my daughter jumped into the pen, and there was a whole different kind of feeling. She gave me very quick writing, Mom, I got to talk to you. I need to tell you some things. And so I just wrote. I wrote everything, as no punctuation. I wrote everything. And then when I put my pen down, I realized that somehow, some way, I was able to reach Cindy, which turns out I needed. I needed that because we never did get the information from any other source.
And so did you get the information from Cindy that you were looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
And I got the information as to what happened, but in a very powerful way, because in my background, I never really thought about life after death particularly. I had a house full of people and I was very busy. So my idea was get through today. Thank you very much. And don't worry about the other end. But Cindy told me not only what happened, but she gave me very explicit instructions on how to help her sons, the 2 boys that she left.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was wonderful.
Yeah. And so you have studied and trained under Alma Daniel with angel meditation, and you did that prior to both losses.
Right.
How did that help, in particular with Cindy? Because, losing a parent is something that we all think of as going to be the natural progression of our life, but losing a child, and then particularly by suicide, has a whole nother set of dynamics. And so were you able to tap into the angel meditation, which you already trained as, to help you heal?
Yes, the short answer is yes, but it was also enhanced by the fact that Cindy talked about the angels that were with her on the other side.
Oh my goodness.
And that was a real wonderful feeling for me, because Alma Daniels had helped us do the meditation with our own guardian angels for the purposes of living a better life. But this just expanded my understanding of how these angels support our loved ones on the other side as they move through the veil. And because I thought my daughter was all alone and had nobody with her, that was one of the worst feelings, that I thought she was alone. And physically she was alone. But she told me she was not alone, that she had not only the angels, but other loved ones that she loved from here, my mother and her Uncle Artie, and a few other people that were precious to her, but the angels were the comforters. And that made it really, really reinforced my love of the angel meditation right there.
Oh my goodness. And to think that your child, no matter the age, wasn't alone at the time of their passing. And I want to share a story of my own, not about an angel, but when our daughter was killed in a car accident, I had the honor of sitting with her body in the field next to the cars, the crushed cars. And at one point I looked up into the darkness in front of us and I saw my grandmother leading my daughter away.
Yes.
And that brought me so much comfort. I know that my grandmother wasn't an angel, but it brought me tremendous comfort, and still does to this day.
And I think it brings the soul of the person in transition comfort to have that feeling. And in retrospect, I realize now that my mother saw her grandmother, which was her first love, when she had that experience of seeing on the upper corner of the room. It was her grandmother that led her to the other side. So apparently, from what they've been teaching me in ways that I needed to learn for other purposes, that's always the case. The loving comfort that we need as we pass, whether it's an emergency like your daughter or my daughter, or whether it's a long-term leaving of the body like my mother, there's always the loved ones waiting to welcome them home, and they're going home.
So since you have, both studied that, and then you were able to learn more about it after losing both your mother and your daughter, what can you share with our viewers about angels? Are they among us all the time, or are they only there when it's our moment to pass?
Well, my present understanding is that we all have guardian angels, individual guardian angels.
Okay.
And we all have times in our lives, as you and I have experienced, when we need extra help. And that time, you and I, for instance, would have more angels around us when we're going through grief. I do believe that a lot of people who are going through grief or illness or worry, whatever it is, you get extra help. But the guardian angels, I believe, are kind of like I would say to my children when they were growing up, to the older child, go watch your little brother, make sure they come back in for dinner, that kind of thing. I picture that God gives us these extra helpers. And a lot of times people have them their whole life long, Linda, and they don't even know they're there. They don't use them.
Well, what about children? I've heard it said that children, they can see through the veil. And so that brings up a question, can they see their own guardian angels? Because what about when children, they have what we would call an imaginary playmate? What are the chances of that being their angel? And or can they see their guardian angel? And then we train it out of them that that's not, possible or what have you. What's your thought on that?
Don't we ever? Well, I know from my personal experience, I remember as a child, I had pneumonia 7 times, that there was a time that I did see angels around me. And I was in an army hospital, God help me. And they didn't cater to children at that time, but I felt comfortable because I knew that there were angels, friends around me. My granddaughter, when she was a little girl, had an imaginary friend she called Sarah. Sarah took care of her things. Sarah once in a while came to my house. We set a place for Sarah. I believe that was an angel for Lauren because she was going through a really hard time with her parents' divorce. Okay. And then my grandson was in one of my issues at the time of the deaths was my grandson was diagnosed with neuroblastoma at the age of 9 months. And then had to have more surgery when he was about 4. And he tells me that he saw lots of angels. He didn't tell me until he was 8 years old. And I asked him why he never said anything to me. And he said, you never asked me. That's why. So, yes. But I think angels are very, very common with children. And I just like auras, children can see auras very often. But they think everybody can. And so there's nothing special about them unless and until they bring that information to someone older who shuts them down. The lady who wrote the book that Ask Your Touched by an Angel was
Roma Downey.
That show came out. She said it came from the fact that she saw an angel when she was 5. And she was told not to ever speak of that again. And so she didn't till she was much older. And then she had lots of stories to tell. Thank goodness for those of us who watched Touched by an Angel.
Yeah. And so for people who, are skeptical about the concept of angels, even though some religions embrace angels, not everyone embraces angels. And so for those who are skeptical, how do you handle that? Because through your own experience and your studying and your training and your teaching, certainly you've probably come across a skeptic or two. How do you handle that?
You're making me think of a radio show I did one time, and there was a gentleman on the show who told me, everybody who was on the air, that there was no such thing as angels. And we talked for a while about, I don't really try to convince anyone. If they'll find their own way at whatever point they need it. But I remember this gentleman in particular because he was a rabbi, I believe. And anyway, we talked for a while, and then we went on a commercial break. And he said to me, Loanne, he says, now that we've been talking for the last half hour, I remember my grandmother told me about angels. And it was a memory that brought him to tears because he remembered how his grandmother used to set a place for the angel at the table. So my own understanding now is that just about every country, just about every culture that you could find has an interest in angels, and they actually bring that into their culture or their religion. The Sufis, the Quran was dictated by an angel. There are so many angels in the Old Testament and New Testament. They're everywhere if you're looking.
Okay.
And I think most people in their lifetime, at some point in time, see it, whether they feel comfortable sharing or not. It's a whole different story. And it's okay because the angels don't need a lot of hype. They just do their job.
Right. They don't
care.
Right. So that takes me to your course in miracles. Many people also don't believe in miracles. Many of us do believe in miracles. You once said that course in miracles helped you to deal with those people who you felt were responsible for Cindy's suicide.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Course in Miracles, as I understand it, is really a wonderful way of just delineating your life between love and fear.
Okay.
Loving people anyway, a la Mother Teresa kind of thing, is not easy for most of us. And what the group that I belong to with the Course in Miracles, I had been with them probably 5 years prior to Cindy's death. And one of the biggest lessons is to learn to forgive. And forgiveness is something that doesn't come trippingly off my tongue, I have to tell you that. But I really listened to some of the Course in Miracles material in a different way when I really had some people that short of killing them, I was really ready to do something terrible to them because I blamed them. And that I know from my Louise Hay work is that comes back to bite me. And I did not want to be that kind of person. I wanted to find a way to forgive. In fact, I don't even use that word. I use let go of things that I'm holding on to that are not helping me. But the work of Course in Miracles is really a basis in how you use that possibility to forgive. And forgiveness is the miracle. Forgiveness of what you believe that someone else did to you, or what is wrong with that person or this person. It's a really marvelous, non-religious way of looking at living a life of light and love. And it goes very nicely with the way I feel about life, but it's also very concrete and a long, long time. I said 10 years, I guess, before I joined the group. And the group now has been 15 years, so 25 years. And I'm beginning to understand how important it is for the world to be more forgiving of each other and loving each other. So it was very helpful, very helpful.
So what happens if someone does not forgive someone else's transgression? What goes on? Like if I didn't forgive somebody or something, what goes on in my spirit, my soul, my body?
Well, from my training, every thought that we think, every single thought that we think goes right through your body within 30 seconds.
Okay.
So if you're angry with someone, or if I'm angry with something, it does things to your teeth are clenched, your head is tight, your heart races, your stomach sometimes is affected. So if you do that, they say we have 50,000 thoughts a day.
Right.
If 45,000 of your thoughts are, ain't it awful, isn't it terrible, it's going to affect your or my function as a human being. Okay. And it colors the way you look at life. If you see it on the news all the time. If people are angry at somebody or angry at a situation, it turns people into a different kind of human person. They are more protected, or they're more actively aggressive. But if you are able to let go of that, whatever that is, you're more in flux, you're more angelic. And in other words, you're more in line with what you can do, not what's wrong with the picture. Does that make sense to you?
That's beautiful, really, because I think about how, every once in a while you run across someone who is bitter, and it shows. And you know that bitterness comes from a wounded place.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere. And, that forgiving someone will help that wound to heal. And not forgiving someone just plants that seed of bitterness that if you don't deal with it, it can really wreak havoc with your life. So going back to the Course in Miracles, and you saying that it's a miracle to, find forgiveness or reach forgiveness, which I think is just incredible. How do you teach that? How do you promote that to people?
Well, I don't. I live it.
Okay.
I go, I mean, if someone asks me about it, I'm very happy to share it. But the group, when they gather together, they use instances like, how do you let go? How do you, they call it the little willingness to be lighter, to let go of this, of whatever we perceive as in the way of what we say we want. And so by finding a way to be more light and more loving to other people, especially those who are difficult to love, to like in some cases. If
Yeah.
we can have the willingness to do that, there's a thing called the holy instant. There's a thing when you bring whatever it is, whatever's broken, whatever you're upset about, to God to heal the situation. And there are times when that happens. Not all the time and not every time, but sometimes it just takes, in fact, in one of my notes from Cindy, she was talking about how you do this one thought at a time, one transgression at a time, one instant at a time, and sort of chip away at the big boulders that seem to be in the way of what we want to be. And Course in Miracles gives you lots of instances in the workbook and lots of instances to discuss it and think about how you can do that. People who are interested in Course in Miracles are usually drawn there, kind of like Field of Dreams. You know, they wind up there at some point or another, and they use that as their part of the tapestry of life. You know, it has a way of looking at love that's different than what we call love. And love is such a hard word to use. It's, as one of my friends used to say, it's too bad we use love for I love hot dogs, I love America, and I love you. Yeah, but it did help me in the sense that it kept my eye on the mountaintop. I know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a person who was dark because of Cindy's death. I really wanted to be lighter than ever before, and I wrote that in my book. How do I do that? Cindy helped, Mother helped, Course in Miracles helped, my knowledge of Louise Hay's work helped. All of it created a tapestry that I said, if this can be done before I die, I would like to be able to be totally of light and to be able to show anybody who's interested that you can move from pain to purpose, just like you do, just like you do.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. So you're going to be teaching some of this for the International Grief Institute. Yes. And the first class is coming up here on June 19th. You're Healing with Angels, and I'm so excited. Yes. What will people learn in that class in particular? Because that's
I think we will concentrate a great deal on one aspect of angels, and that is healing. They do so many things that I think you can just begin at the beginning of something. And most of us who are in the grief world know what the need for healing our grief is. So we'll work with that. And we'll also talk a little bit mostly about guardian angels, I think, because there are millions of angels out there, different levels and so forth. But right now, I'm of the belief that if we can heal ourselves, that it exponentially helps to heal the world.
Amen. Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I'm very excited about your classes. And for our viewers who are interested, go to university.internationalgriefinstitute.com. And we're just starting to add the classes on there. Loanne's class, Healing with Angels, is on there, and you can go ahead and register. It's free. And I hope you can join us. But Loanne, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to move forward with your classes. And how can viewers contact you in the meantime if they have any questions or want to contact?
Feel free to contact me on my email, which is lamayer, M-A-Y-E-R, @msn.com, or they can go to my website, which is www.celestialconversations.com. Or they can even go to another organization that I belong to that's international, which we share, internationalgriefcouncil.org. And so there's lots of ways of finding me, but you'll find me if you need me. But just keep your eye out for the angels, and you'll perhaps find that there are many ways, the ways that's best for you. You'll discover it once you're looking.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to see you on June 19th in Healing with Angels class. And much appreciation for you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight and share with viewers the miracles of angels and the miracles of life and how it can be used to help heal a broken heart. And much love and big hugs to you.
Thank you, my dear. Good to talk with you.
See you soon. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you.